Hello and good afternoon. We're back at EYUC 2024 content in Belgium. And we've got the next matchup in the women's division for you. It's Sweden going up against GB under 17 division. And I believe players are about ready to go. As we just heard the 7 players called onto the line in the background. I'm Christina Obermeyer coming to you remotely from Austria, and we've got a video stream for you this afternoon. There's another game going on right now, which is Chile against Austria in the Open Division. And we're here in the Women's Division under 17. So we can see here the disc is thrown to the GB women's side, which also means they start on defense. So they will send the disc over to Sweden. This is called a pull, which should ideally lands inbounds and around the big mark right here in the middle. And Sweden are off to the races with a 3-person handler set in the back, looking to advance to the other side of the field and hopefully score their first goal of this match. So we're at around midfield and the disc goes to the far side of the pitch. Continuation works well. And then we're at their attacking break point already. You can see the break point is the cross in the middle there. Right in front and back around. Looking for a reset and go right into the center, and a great continuation. Good flow from the Swedes there onto the far side of this field. Up the line, past a short one, and the continuation for the first score. Looks like it works, but apparently there was some call that it does look like the hand signals for a travel, meaning the player didn't hold position when throwing the disc was signaled, but the same throw goes up again, and that's the first score for the Swedes. They advance with a clean hold, 1-0. So I just talked about a travel call, which just means that the player is not allowed to move their feet while throwing. If they do so in any manner, then the opponents can call them out on it and stop play for a second. They have to reestablish their point, so where they're staying, and then have to throw again. But this time that worked really well, as they just did the same throw again. GB with their first offensive possession, going to the side here and advancing to midfield quickly. Back into the middle. That's Zoe Taylor onto the far side, and that disc very low and rolls out the side. Even great spin on that to even to roll that further along, but couldn't quite catch it. And it's the first turnover. First time the disc lands on the ground here. And Sweden get an opportunity to start with 2 points over 0. GB. Sweden advance the disc, getting it to move quickly, switch sides, and the defense runs through. The disc was demanded, but Adams gets the block. Nearly a run through by the Swedish player there on the first pass into the middle, but GB seem to have found their flow now. Another super close defensive attempt by the Swedish player. Continuation goes to the far side. And again up the line. Pass. Close now on that far side. The disc goes up and touched but not caught on that far side of the field. Just in the end zone. It would have been a great point there for GB with nice flow, but just hits the ground and the Swedes are back on offense again. Nice leading pass, that inside angle, but not anything for a continuation to start the flow. Going to the middle and a great switching of the sides. Long shot and caught in stride for the Swedes up the line. Again, looking for a continuation by anyone, and the shot goes out the side, but it didn't have the right angle on it. If she had released it a bit later, it would have curved in, and that would have probably been the ideal shot for them. But instead, it just went out the side of the pitch. Also, the disc never really went in bounds again, which gives the GB an advantage on field position for a little bit. Nice grab behind the back there. And the continuation goes. Another one there, and the shot again the same as before, but this time it works out so well. GB jump in celebration, but it does seem like there's a call for an out of bounds catch, meaning the player did not catch the disc while inside the field, and apparently it is agreed that the player did not touch the line or was outside of bounds when catching the disc in the end zone. Of course, different to tennis, for example, if you touch the line with just the tiniest part of your body, it's not in bounds anymore, as this one is bubbled and dropped for Sweden. It was such a nice continuation of two long passes, and then the pop pass into the end zone for the score is just a little too high and bounces out of the hands of the receiver. Taylor walking the disc back on. Seems like she's the central handler for that GB side. Nice low grab, and the continuation goes a high disc with the cowboy hat on the GB side. And another high disc with so much hang time that it's easily collected on that knee side again, and continuation goes, and that's a score for GB. After a shaky start, they get their first point on the board as well. Let's see the mascots and the GB flags. Of course, this is always a great event for young players to experience the highest level that they can compete in their division, the European Championships and under 17, and a lot of parents travel with their kids, and Well, there's a lot of support, especially for the GB sides usually. With a long-standing tradition of under 17, under 20 players competing on the European stage. Sweden quickly advancing with the disc now, and it does seem to be a score. Oh, a turnover for GB. The screen quality lacking a bit. I'm not so sure what's happening right now, but over in favor of Swedes. Looks like it was in front of the end zone of the Brits already. Up again. Giving and going quite easily, and that is a bubbled disc that hits the ground. Is not able to catch it. Nice high disc and caught with one hand. What a great grab from the GB player. Looks for a continuation or someone to relieve her off the disc, and that one just does not connect and bubbles to the ground. Quickly picked up by the Swedish player and chucked deep for the defense. GB drop up again on their first continuation pass. Inside shot. That's a really nice one. That seems to always work for the Swedes. Looks for someone and gets another inside shot. Far side, near side of the pitch now. And switching field position again. And up the line. A shot that was a bit behind, but works for the sticky hands of the receiver. Loads of traffic in front of the disc now. And that just too high, and it does seem like this far side of the pitch is not the ideal place to score it. We've seen probably like 4 discs not connect with players yet. Or just a bit too high or too far out in front, too far out the side. GB have another opportunity here for a break to go up by 1. Nice long shot, and it's kept in bounds. Continuations are here for GB. They're doing that really well. Goes back around. It's a continuation onwards. Vivid fakes and finds a reset. Nice poach off there by the Swedish defender on this open side here, on that easy assist, and there it goes. The player was waiting there for quite some time, and now is going to throw it deep. Loads of hang time, perfectly put, and that's a score for the Swedes to redeem them after an intense turnover-prone point. So that Swedish defender disregarded her matchup for one-on-one defensive coverage and waited until this open side throw was going to come off, and then just jumped to the front from behind. GB receiver had no idea that there was another defender lurking to snatch that disc away. But she did and put it deep into the end zone immediately after, with loads of hang time and a player just needing to run under it. GB. Right back on. Oh, that was a really good pull in the back of the field. Even behind their break point, looking for now the first option. And that disc seems like a bailout on a high stall. Just a little bit too far out in front. Swedish player with some very stylish, fast glasses. Approaching. Picking up the disc. Goes around. A nice reset. And a power position there, and they're going to take it as well. The hang time again, perfect for them, but the GB player is there first. Although this disc probably wouldn't have gone into the end zone anyway. Landed out of bounds, and it takes a few steps. Takes a few steps into to get there. Tucking it all the way to the other side, 2 receivers with a chance to get it. Up the line pass now. Into the middle. Continuation, fake the second one taken. High disc caught, and now looking for another up the line pass. A high disc, and that one caught at the highest point possible for the score. GB get their hold, and it's 2-2 now. The weather looks to be really nice. Some clouds, but sunny. I can't attest to any wind conditions though, but it does seem like the trees in the back are not really moving. And flags are only moving because of people waving them. As that first pass for the Swedes is too far, and GB get an opportunity to get the first break on the board. As the disc does not connect with the hands of the receiver, Sweden get a favorable field position to try and hold. Nice run down in that power position, not taking the first one, taking the second shot, and that is a beautiful put, the disc staying out there, waiting for the receiver to run under it. And that was an easy score. Just what the Swedes needed, and I really love the flow of both teams, actually. I'm really impressed by the skill level of these athletes. There's been one or the other turnover that's probably not ideal, or what they like that still early game jitters where just the hand do not connect with the disc in the right way and it just drops to the ground, but that happens. But in general, the way they're cutting and the way they are setting up the playing field and their cuts does look very impressive to me. Keeping in mind that all of these athletes are 16 and younger, from under 17. Looks like a bright future of Frisbee. One nice one-handed grab. Had to stretch out the other hand to get there, and that's a save on a second attempt. It looked like it was batted away, at least the intended target didn't get it, but going low to the ground to get that disc, and another near run through. Hands arcing wide from the Swedish player, but Taylor keeps it in possession. That disc now too low and too far. Couldn't quite get their hands around it. The Swedish team has an opportunity to go up by 2. Current score, of course, 3-2 in favor of Sweden as they started on offense. Nice up the line shot. Vivid cuts in front of the disc, but gets a reset. Up the line and looking for the continuation. Nice put into the path of the intended target. Now looking to cross over to the other side of the field. Not really anyone open at the moment, but they get it to the near side again down the line. A rather dangerous part of the field to be in, and there it is kind of been a bit of a commentary's curse as the hand block from the GB player prevents Sweden to connect, but another block, a run-through block at this, and the Swedes picking up quickly, trying to get it going. Now there goes a continuation, and that is bookends for Sweden, and that is the first break we've seen so far. Sweden scoring with Vilma Westman to get the block and the score for Sweden. And they're up by 2 now. Current score is 4-2. Does seem like GB took a timeout. I really like the shout at the Swedes to go into the shade to do their timeout to, get as much of the cooler place under the trees as possible. as GB opts to take the middle of the pitch for their timeout. Of course, the GB squad a bit bigger than the Swedish. I think they have an advantage of 5 or 6 players. Maybe attesting to the bigger frisbee scene in Great Britain as opposed to Sweden. This ball lands out of bounds. I feel like that's the first ball we have seen to land out of the central area for Sweden. And a GB player will take the disc and the brick point and throw it immediately and directly into a Swedish defender that poached off a little bit, but not too much. And the Swedes could go on a run of 3 points in a row right now if they get it into the end zone. Continuation goes, but the GB player picks it off the ground and picked up again by the Swedes. And the continuation goes into the middle again. So apparently in turnover in favor of GB. And they've got the disc again, but it floats out the side once more. We're now always around the brick point, Sweden's attacking end zone, also called the red zone, where red is kind of a dangerous zone where one pass could put you into the end zone. It's going to take them more than one pass, especially if this one's not caught and GB get it back again. Nice high catch by the heavily banded GB player. But that one just bubbles out of the hands. There you go, that one pass shot, and I'm quite a fan of these tries, especially if you feel like your receiver has an advantage to the defender. But the disadvantage of this is if you pick the disc up at the sideline and you throw it deep and the disc never comes back into the playing field, your opponent can pick it up right where the disc left the field in the first place, which gives GB a very good position at the midfield line. Continuation, well, anything goes. The disc goes off at least, but it's swatted down by 2 Swedish defenders. Seems like maybe GB wasn't quite ready. Put into the middle, and switching of the sides of attack works with a low disc at continuation. And the hawk goes up again. What a nice disc. Just stayed inbounds. And there is an out call by a GB player in the back. Players around the disc seem not to have seen it as well, or just not have an opinion on it. Quite frankly, my view of it, or our view from home, isn't the best, I think. So we can definitely see the line, but whether the player's feet were in or out or put on the line, at all. We couldn't tell. I'm sure the players around are going to discuss it, of course. I'm sure you know this, but just a reminder, Frisbee is a self-officiated sport, so even at the age of 16 and under, players are encouraged and required to solve any issues recording the rules of the game themselves without participation of officiators of any kind. So it has been resolved to put the disc back to replay the situation, to get the disc back to the initial thrower, and now Sweden are advancing the disc in a different manner. But the deep shot goes off, it floats, there's two players underneath it, but a catch under pressure gives another score to the Swedes. And they go up by 3 points, 5-2. The disc to the break point and putting it into play. Seemed like a zone setup, and Arrowhead, the Swedish defensive side. Arrowhead, meaning they have one person marking in the middle, and that usually the disc is in the middle of the field. And that is a score for GB, a clean hold, and I do believe the first clean hold we've seen from GB in this game. And what a sign, what a great way, and to get that goal, that was very necessary, because 3-5 is a scoreline that you can, it just seemed pretty close still, but the 2-6 would have been the other, so another break for Sweden would probably have been fatal for the momentarily not floating away of GB yet. Sweden's O-line back out there, and what quick score for them. After GB scored that quick goal, Sweden thing with a deep shot that connects. You can sometimes see that when the team's O-line hasn't been on the field for a little while, for maybe 2 to 3 points, they are kind of out of their rhythm, have to find their way back in again, but not for the Swedish team, definitely not. That was just a perfect put to go up 6-3. We are back on offense, and it does seem Sweden are back with zone look again. It didn't work as well, so GB didn't have that much trouble breaking through it the last time. It does seem like now there is a turnover in favor of Sweden, as they're around their mark now against the disc downfield. Seems to be a collision on the field. I'm not so sure what it's regarding. Seems to be resolved now, and Sweden are breaking the field, the disc down the field. Papas into the middle, back to one of their trusted handlers again. It does look like Sweden now scored the 7th goal. Another break for them. And the discussion, they managed to work it down the field. Fortunately, now my screen is frozen. Do you think, or at least like this in the last we called that the hot 7? It does look like now Teams are off and we are going into a halftime with Sweden up 7-3 of GB. I'll take a short break and we'll be back for a second half action. We are back live here. Second half action with GB taking on Sweden. And as Sweden started the first half on offense, it's now GB's turn to start the offense. And that's a very interesting upside down throw. I believe it was a hammer. Nice idea. I love a good hammer, but doesn't seem to have come out off the way they wanted to. What a nice put into space for the Swedish player. Maybe proceed 8th point then for them, but GB are back in possession again. It is the far side of the continuation over the top. And the deep shot comes off. GB get this score. To come within 3, 7, 4 in favor of the Swedes coming up. Unfortunately, my screen was frozen again, but it seems like Sweden now got another score on GB and a clean hold, just assuming by the time it took them to advance up the field. So doubling the score again, Sweden 8, Great Britain 4. We're at around 50 minutes of playing time. And Sweden with a bit of a dominant performance over GB in this match. And I do think it also part of it was just some better luck at times. And the Swedish throwers are just really impressive. Like the deep shots we've seen come off and being collected by the Swedes are just a level above the GB side, whereas GB really has the depth with a few more players. So in the early stages of the tournament, Swedes are coming up, but we'll see if they have stamina to keep that performance up throughout all of the 5 days of this tournament. As GB are now advancing up the field, that just has a lot of hang time, could have been caught by a help receiver, but hits the ground and goes to Sweden. And a lot of hang time for the and the Swedish players get another point on the board, now really establishing their performance on offense, really connecting some of the mistakes, using their advantage to get from GB, mistakes that aren't necessarily forced, but just miscommunication or catch 9-5 now, a rather demanding scoreline to surmount if you're GB. But as I already said, just early in the tournament, these kinds of mistakes can happen through jitters or just, getting the 7-on-7 against teams that you have never met before. All new experiences for these players, and making these experiences young just means so much to enjoy those in the future. Well, it's always a really slow energy to be at these youth tournaments. You can even feel it from watching the lines full of parents and supporters for their national sides. As GB now advancing up the field again around the middle of the pitch now. Into the and their side, but that just on the ground again, and of Sweden, who pick up now a reset, make it to the other side of the pitch. Now and another score for the Swedes, apparently expand their lead. To a line of 10-4. I hope that's so correct. But now with a 6-point advantage. The GB side has apparently taken their second time out, regrouping and trying to find into the game again, get their focus back. And there's a short break and be back after the timeout. So we're back after the timeout. I really love the way that GB coaching staff is opting to take their timeouts. We saw the game for shortly after, at the point where they were broken. for the first time, just being like, okay, and it's fine. We'll know that Sweden have advanced. Further in the second half, they're taking that time to kind of stop the bleeding and get the groove on. Just remind the girls that there's a reason they're here at this European Championship. But again, this does not connect, and the disc is high and hanging in the end zone. But this time around, the GB player manages to get D and they get the disc back. For another drop in the downfield area. Short field opportunity of Sweden. And that's a score. Swedes now within 2 of a victory over Great Britain early in the tournament. Of course, as halftime is at 7, games are played to 13 points. Usually, or like normal rules, not specific to this tournament, we've got halftime at 8, and the score cap, or the hard cap, where the game abruptly ends, is at 15. Should be now all huddling together, call a line of players and to motivate each other. With these big squads, it's sometimes hard to balance lines and put everyone on there, but it really is important to just remember also that you're a team, and even if you're not on the field playing, you're still part of it, and you have to motivate and sideline and being helpful, being loud and motivating each other is also a really important part of being a teammate. And a nice grab for this leading pass, one hand stretched out, continuation through the side, and slashes through the hands of the intended continuation there. Seems like GB are trying or playing a zone of their own, as we've seen Sweden before, quickly setting up after the turn, which I really like, being able to be flexible enough to do that and with a quick transition out of a turnover. It seemed like they're just poaching off the handlers and going rather matchup, and there it works, the poach, slashing that disc down with a good position in the middle of the field for GB to advance. Very much needed score for morale on that GB side. A slashing cut, and that's such a low pass. Had her hands around the disc on the end zone, but that's down, and there is a talk on the field, maybe a hand, like a foul on the mark or some sort. The disc going back to the thrower, to the initial GB thrower. But it will be resolved as a turn regardless, so the disc moved to the other side, but discussion resolved as to not keeping the possession in on the GB side. Negative yards for Sweden, but they managed to work well through that zone. Oh, and a lot of pressure there through the middle, sticking it in. Now back and around. Faking the scuba over the top. A very good throw in the zone, but maybe not without a clear receiver in a lot of space. Opted against it anyway. A 3-person handler set up behind the disc for this zone and looking for a continuation now, and they get it as well. Going through the holes now, they broke through this first line of defenders, and after advancing a little bit, slowing down again, but that is a big shot into the arms of a Swedish player in stride. One more score. Not a clean one, but a score regardless for the Swedes. And after a 6-point run, 5 breaks in a row, Sweden are within 1 of closing out that game victorious. Can hear the whistles in the back, signaling the start of the pools. Of course, there's always a lot of volunteers at these bigger events, working as scorekeepers and timekeepers. You've got a specific time. Oh, and the bobbled catch again for GB. They don't seem to connect on any of these discs now. What a pity. As Sweden advance up the field and the disc is bobbled out of the hands. This is the first time we've seen a mistake like this from Sweden in such a crucial moment for GB. High disc. This one is caught. What a great catch. High with both hands in the air. And GB advance. Oh, but Sweden get it back quickly. Everyone slashing by the person in possession. The disc goes wide and far, and that's a score for Sweden. In stride. It did seem like that disc was a little too far, but it was just perfect with the hang time and the link key receiver just running underneath it, just getting that disc and scoring the final point of the game. Sweden win over GB with a score line of 13-4. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the coverage on Solid Sports. We've got more live action for you. Coming up next is Belgium and France in the open division and Switzerland against Sweden in the open division for today. And then we'll have coverage all the rest of the week with the finals on Saturday. So make sure that you don't miss any of the live coverage. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've been Christina Obermeier, and I hope to see you and call some games for you again soon.
1 fair and square. Good.